Every ancient civilization that looked at the sky feared Saturn. Not Jupiter, which is larger and brighter. Not Mars, which is red and warlike. Saturn. The Romans suspended all law during their Saturnalia festival. Masters served slaves, social order collapsed for 7 days, and no one could explain why that specific planet demanded that specific ritual. The Babylonians called it the Star of the Sun, and assigned it to their god of death. The Greeks named it after Cronus, the god who devoured his own children to prevent being overthrown. Every culture arrived at the same conclusion independently. Saturn was the one to fear. That convergence was not coincidence. It was memory. The Book of Enoch says they were right to fear it. And it says they were right for a reason no modern astronomy textbook will tell you. The text, banned by the church in 364 CE, preserved in the mountains of Ethiopia for 17 centuries, does not describe Saturn as a planet. It describes it as a prison, the largest structure ever built, constructed at the outer boundary of the created world to contain something too powerful to be destroyed, too dangerous to remain on Earth, and too ancient to be sealed beneath stone like the Watchers were. And the rings you can see through any backyard telescope on a clear night. The text says those are not ice, they are chains. If suppressed biblical history is something you cannot stop thinking about once you find it, subscribe now. Every week we read what was removed. The passage we are working with today is preserved in the restricted section of the Ethiopian Ge'ez manuscript tradition held in Aksum, the same archive that has been closed to outside examination for over 2 centuries. The section carries a heading that translates from the Ge'ez as the words concerning the outer seal and the keeper bound within it. Its designation in the Qumran Aramaic fragment tradition, cataloged within the 4Q201 through 4Q212 Enoch family at the Shrine of the Book in Jerusalem, is what scholars working from Józef Milik's private notes have called 4Q Enoch S. Milik, the Polish Dead Sea Scrolls scholar who cataloged the Qumran material for the École Biblique in Jerusalem across 2 decades, referenced this fragment cluster in correspondence with colleagues in the 1970s. He described it as the passage that most resisted integration into any known Second Temple Jewish framework. He did not publish it. His notes on it were not included in his 1976 landmark volume. They were found by colleagues after his death in 2006, labeled in his handwriting with a single word in Latin that translates as boundary. George Nicholsburg, professor emeritus at the University of Iowa and among the foremost living authorities on the Enoch tradition, has written that the cosmological sections of the Enoch manuscript, the passages dealing with the outer structure of the heavens, are the most systematically avoided material in the entire corpus. James Vanderkam of the University of Notre Dame, co-author of the standard scholarly introduction to the Dead Sea Scrolls, has noted that the outer heaven passages of Enoch appear to preserve a theological cosmology with no surviving parallel in any Second Temple text we currently possess. No parallel, not a similar one, not a related one, none. That is because what this passage describes has no parallel. It is in a category of its own. This is not astrology. This is not mythology dressed up as scripture. Astrology assigns planets to human events. Mythology assigns planets to gods with human personalities. What the Enoch text does is neither of those things. It describes a physical structure with a specific function, specific contents, and specific dimensions. It reads the way an engineering report reads, not because the author was an engineer, but because the author was describing something real that required accurate description to be useful. Consider what the ancient fear of Saturn actually looked like in practice. The Babylonian astronomical records, some of the oldest scientific documents in human history, devoted more observation time to Saturn than to any other planet. Their astronomers tracked its 29-year orbital cycle with a precision that required generations of uninterrupted record-keeping. 29 years is how long Saturn takes to complete one orbit around the Sun. The Babylonians did not know about orbital mechanics, but they knew the cycle. They tracked it the way a parole officer tracks a release date, with attention, with concern, with a specific awareness that something was going to happen at the end of it. In ancient Hebrew tradition, the number 7 is the number of completion. Saturn's cycle, rounded to the nearest whole number, is 29 years, and 29 divides into the larger cycles of biblical prophecy with a regularity that Jewish astronomers noted in texts that have never been fully published in Western languages. The outer seal passage in Enoch addresses this cycle directly. It says the seal's signal strengthens at each completion of the outer orbit. It says this is the moment of confirmation, the moment when the authority that built the prison receives acknowledgement that the prisoner is still inside, every 29 years. Like a check-in that the prisoner cannot refuse and the warden cannot miss. The text begins with this: the outer boundary of the created world is not empty space. The passage describes the created world as having a limit, a place where the divine structure ends and something else begins. At that boundary, the text says, a construction was placed, not built by human hands, not built by the Watchers, built before either existed. The Ge'ez text uses a word for its construction that is the same word used for the creation of the earth itself, implying the outer seal was made at the same moment, as part of the same act, Creation and containment, built together, the same event. The structure is described as a wheel of light with chains wound through it, enormous beyond any measurement the text attempts to give. It surrounds the boundary completely. The Ge'ez word implies a full encircling, no gaps, and it moves. The text says it turns, slowly, continuously, a turning wheel of wound light at the edge of everything.